All right, guys, we are back, and we're gonna have some of the stuff we did last time. We're gonna do some Krogtionary, and Atmaz and I are gonna draw some pictures, and then the casters are gonna have to guess what on earth we're drawing. How's it going, Atmaz? Are you with us right now?
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm here. You can hear me, right?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're just gonna play a little game here as we wait for the next semifinal match to be ready. If you don't know, the Korean stream that's going on right now is broadcasting Alvar versus Teddy, which is the other semifinals match. We're going to wait for the other one, which at this point is going to be Imperia versus to be determined. So it's going to take some time till that match is ready. And why not play some Krogtionary? And the way this is going to work today is, yeah, we're just going to draw some pictures. And who do we have guessing today? Do we have Scorch with us?
Scorch, are you with us?
Yep, I'm here ready to go. Hopefully I'm able to do a little better than I did last time when I was absolutely clueless as to what you were going for, Amaz, but I'm excited.
Yeah, it was a little insulting. I mean, I thought I was doing a great job. And who else? Is that, do we have Cappuccino or who else do we have? If you're here, yep.
I'll be trying my best
okay.
as well, hoping I don't disappoint.
Rolo, are you going to join us as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I suck at these kind of games, but I mean, we'll have to see how much stronger than me, Cappuccino and Scotch anyway.
See, I'll give you guys a pro tip. If you ever want to step up your commentary game, you have to guess what Atman's pictures are. You get like plus 10 commentary in your next caster game, so keep that in mind.
It's true. It works that way. But I guess this will just be a friendly competition. You know, you're not going to win anything here. You're just going to win pride between the three of you. Okay, so are we ready to go, I think?
Yeah.
By the way, are we on screen? You can see all this stuff here? Okay. Just do a long snick.
Did you want me to give you a number, or are you going to choose one yourself?
Yeah, you choose it. Surprise me. Make me
can't remember what I've picked, so I'm going to choose a number at random. I'm going to have number 4.
Number 4. Okay. Oh, good choice. Strong choice. I'm going to make sure I get this very accurate. Okay. Yeah, we're going to begin here, and we try and be as accurate as possible. Okay, let's start with this. Now, for those of you who are new to this little Krogtionary, as we're going to call it now, the way we draw these cards is we go the long way around. We don't start with the obvious stuff. So we're going to do a little bit of the background. We're going to choose the right colors here. Let's see if we get a nice little Prussian blue up in here. Oh, nice. Very nice. Now, the color isn't actually quite accurate, but it's close enough. Okay, I'm just going to do some stuff here. Bear with me. It'll make sense later. You can decide what to do with that. Now, at any point, you can guess. You can just throw out a guess. I'll tell you if you're wrong. You're right. You can guess as much as you want until you start spamming, at which point I'm gonna say stop that. But I don't think you're gonna do that. Does anybody have any idea yet? What do you think?
I got nothing so
No,
far.
I got nothing.
I'm trying to think of what those dots in the sky could be.
Yeah, see, that's it's going to throw you off a little bit, but I promise you, that's part of the final drawing. Now, I don't know what color I picked here. This might be wrong. Okay, that'll do. Oh, this is okay. We're in a little bit of emergency here. I kind of messed up, but it's okay. I'll recover. Here we go.
You have to keep in mind, guys, that Atmaz is an absolute mind gamer when he does these pictures.
Okay,
what
so
are
there's
the
an
minimal details that I can give?
I need to actually. Here, we can make mistakes sometimes. We can just erase that. That was a little bit of a problem there. That would have confused you too much. Okay, we're going to start getting into the meat and potatoes of this thing. And at this point, I expect some guesses to start just rolling out. Just rolling out of your mouths at any point here.
Is it Bold Bargainer?
It is not Bold Bargainer. It is very far from Bold Bargainer. First of all, what color do you think this card is? Like what?
Oh, I just know Bold Bargainer has all those dots on the...
Longhorn Yak.
It is not Longhorn Yak. Come on, Longhorn Yak doesn't have all this stuff in it. It's like on a prairie. How can this be Longhorn Yak? Very
At least I have to get bonus points for saying Yak, right?
You get one. Okay, so Zologram's in the lead with 1 point.
Is that Runin's Presence?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Really?
Presents, guys.
Second guess for Cappuccino.
You look like a Yak.
Are you showing it on screen now? Are you showing everyone on screen with this? Yeah, so everyone can see here. Look, there's this little tiki guy here. I kind of drew him last. He's kind of smoking something here that summons Runin. Who knows if Runin is really there or not? I don't know what's going on, and yeah, there's a little Runin there. Runin has a little dot right here. Did you ever notice this? Okay, so yeah, that was a good one. I think we can do one more at least until the next match is ready. Once again, we're just killing some time, hoping you guys are enjoying. Oh, this is a good runing. What do you think about all this? Do you think Whiskers? Okay,
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's good.
That's pretty
I like
good.
it.
thanks guys. I worked hard on it. Okay, so now we got to erase it all and start again. I'm just going to do a quick check, see what our players are doing. Oh, you know what? They're going to do a short break for the next match. So I think we do another quick one, but then we're going to begin. The players are ready, but they're going to take a break themselves. So, all right, we're going to do a quick one. Aqua, do you want to draw it or me? And then
I'll
pick
let you
a
draw
number?
another one. I want to see
Okay.
how you do. Do number 8.
Number 8. Okay. Oh, okay. I see. This is a good one. We're gonna kind of speed draw this one. Speed paint it here once I pick the correct color. And okay. Without further ado. Oh man, this one might be too obvious. I'm going. I'm just going. I'm going whole hog here. You can't stop me. This might even be too much right there. Wow, I think I just gave away way too much.
Magneto.
Yeah, I saw.
It's Magneto, of course.
Magneto. It's not Magneto. Good guess though. Wow, it really does look like Magneto. So you get 1 point for Magneto. But that's not the correct card. So we're still going. I'm a little off here because I am drawing fast. Now normally I take a lot more time here, guys. I mean, come on. You know I need a lot more time to draw.
Brush
Now
art,
that color,
right? Art
that
takes
color is
time.
supposed to be the same as the other color, but just pretend that it is. Okay, no guesses yet, really? Here, maybe this will help. Maybe that'll help you. That should help you out right there. Now the human form is a very difficult thing to draw.
Is that Keldron Soldier?
It is Keldron Soldier. Cappuccino, you're an
Yes.
encyclopedia.
Oh, that's not fair. Cappuccino has like 10,000 hours more played yellow than we have.
That's.
I think the
mean,
hardest part is Atmaz picks cards that we really just forget exist.
Well,
As soon as I saw the arm, I'm like, yeah, that's Keldron.
see, I told you the arm would give it away. But yeah, no, Aquaman picks these. I'm just drawing them. There, Keldron Soldier. That's pretty good. He does have a little bit of a little lip there. Okay, so thanks for playing. Cappuccino wins 1,000 points to I think everyone else had 1. Because you guessed Magneto. But that's it. That's our correctionary. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We are going to move on to the next match now. I do want to say Eggbot should be working perfectly. All you guys should be getting your rewards. Remember, it's just a chance to win rewards. I would tell you watch for 4 hours. Once we hit the 4-hour point, then eggs will be sent out, and it can take up to 30 minutes to receive those in game. Egg hatching. We're having a problem with that this weekend, so no more eggs will be hatching, but we'll be doing another hatching period this week to make up for it, so there'll be no problem there. Just to give you an update on the eggs. Thank you guys very much for participating in this break, and I think we're going to transition over to the next match.
Yeah, we will be jumping over very soon. Gonna head to the desk quickly. Scorch, you are with us now, in the flesh. Any thoughts on this upcoming game?
Yeah, so we actually had the bracket update while we were doing that there. Zerikar advanced past Senelian 3-1, so we don't get kind of the re-showing of the two players that we saw earlier of Imperia and Senelian. We'll get Imperia versus Zerikar instead. Would have been cool to see kind of knowing what the decks were, but I guess that does kind of play into Imperia now has been shown on stream, so maybe Zerikar was watching and had a little bit of an advantage knowing what Imperia's lineup is versus his, which is hidden. But I'm very excited to see what these players bring. Zerikar has been around for a little while now, played in the Battle of the Gods, played in the March finals, and then now in the April as well. Imperia, the only player remaining out of the top 4 from the semifinals who isn't a God rank qualification. Alvar, Teddy, and Zerikar all qualified for the Monthly Cup here through God rank. Imperia through qualifier number 1. So I'm really excited to see that as a storyline of the God rank versus Imperia coming through of the qualifier.
Zerikar is a player who's kind of shot up out of nowhere, right? He was kind of participating in bits and pieces, and all of a sudden, he was getting top 8 God. He was qualifying for the Monthly Cup. He was performing exceptionally well. I believe he played in Battle of the Gods as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, played in Battle of the Gods, losing to Sweetie 2-3. So close series as well, not just a I showed up but I got dominated type of thing, right? And even through qualifier in March, didn't qualify through that. So again, a God rank qualification in March. So back to back, just really good showings on the ladder.
Yeah, and Sweetie won Battle of the Gods. Very accomplished player. We saw him in the previous game, so Sweetie's no slouch, that's for sure. So Zerikar definitely showing his worth over the last few months in competitive Faeria. And Imperia, like, no, it needs no real introductions. You know, one of the top players in the game. You know, part of one of the best Faeria teams in the game, one of the best Faeria countries in the game. He has France behind him, he has Faeria Tail behind him, he has his results behind him, so Imperia is definitely a favourite to win this match. But let's get into it, guys. Cappuccino and Zologrim are going to be bringing you the action live, so let's get into the game.
Thank you very much, guys. And yeah, super excited to see Imperia yet again, and up against Sarkar, who, yeah, as you guys pointed out, is somewhat similar to Hunter, starting to get really a good showing into these tournaments, and going to start things off with a green-red, what looks to be Crackthorn list, up against the blue jump we saw from Imperia.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say from your experience playing it on ladder? Which deck is favored in this matchup? We've seen it a couple of times. It always seemed like 50-50, 55-45, depending on tech choices to me personally, but maybe you have some more insight.
I think, speaking from experience, the Crackthorn is a little bit favored. Especially when you can find these ground shakers to line up against Prophets. Now, Imperia's list is using Sunken Tower, so it's going to be less vulnerable to that. But anytime you develop a Triton Trainer or you develop a Water Alley and it gets Flame Burst, that just opens up the potential for this green-red deck to really start to snowball. And after you get going with the green-red, it's very hard for blue to just get back onto the board, because what happens is you draw into your Wave Crash and it's still like 8 cost, and you just can't get those discounts that you needed early.
Yeah, I think I agree that the Crackthorn seemed favored to me, at least. Also because it both has a fairly strong early game with a lot of cheap and efficient early gatherers like the Wood Elemental and the X-Briner we can see here. But on the other hand, it also has a fairly strong late game with the Crackthorn Beast, especially against blue. So it basically can contest the blue deck at most stages of the game if it gets a solid opening, which Sarkar definitely seems to have this match at least.
Now, Imperia actually has the ability to summon the Ninja Toad to double collect for 2 Faeria, and then summon the Mystic Beast, and I'm going to be curious if he goes for it. He actually doesn't. And it would have allowed just one more additional discount on the Colossus, but then again, you want to save your Ninja Toad to get the buff from the Triton Trainer so that you have a 5/4 haste unit for killing Wood Ellies and Sagami Warriors, so definitely makes sense that he wanted to save it. It just would have been interesting if he valued the discount.
I kind of like playing the Ninja Toad even as a collector against Crackthorn, because Crackthorn is one of the very few decks running red that actually choose to cut Cypher's Wrath a fair amount of times. Not all of them, some of them run both Flame Burst and Cypher's Wrath, but many choose to not go with the Cypher's Wrath, and that means that the Ninja Toad is a bit safer as a collector than as opposed to against the regular red deck, which generally run 3 Cypher's Wrath. So I might have preferred the additional Faeria income from the collection, but I don't blame Imperia for just going with the safe Mystic Beast instead.
Now, this is actually interesting. Sarkar going for the 3rd mountain, so if Imperia doesn't have any knowledge from other players, at the moment, Sarkar is disguising himself as a mono-red deck very well, and that might even cause Imperia to be scared of Bomb Slingers as a potential card to come down.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting choice. Not to reveal the fact that he's playing green. Maybe, especially with the Wood Elemental in hand, he could like go for the surprise buff if he draws into it and creating 2 forests with the Wood Elemental, which Imperia might not play around.
Yeah, I think one of the other options, instead of playing the Cypher... Now, Cypher is a very strong line here, because if Imperia doesn't have the Frogify, it means your 5/4 is threatening the Mystic Beast in a very strong way, and it does have the ability to retreat, but it's nice to get that developed and start threatening. But it would have been interesting to see if he had gone for a Wood Alley in between the walls, because you could have that 3/4 start double collecting, have your 4/3 start contesting the Mystic, and then that enables Ground Shakers. But while I'm talking about this, Imperia finds a very strong line of actually getting the Ninja Toad to clear off that Axe Grinder, gets the aggressive collect, so already 2 discounts on Wave Crash as we go into Sarkar's turn.
Yeah, really nice play, and especially because it puts this Mystic Beast in a position where it can still contest the lower well if he manages to draw into a Frogify, whilst being safe from any kind of movement tricks that Saraka might have had in hand. And at this point, he does reveal that he's playing green just because he needs to set up the wood elemental, or he wants to set up the wood elemental as a collector, because most likely he will try to get more value out of the X grinders due to playing them next to the opponent's orb, I assume.
Yeah, and a huge pickup here for Imperia. Finds his Frogify, so able to deal now with that Cypher, and it's going to be a perfect answer. He has the option of doing Lake Mystic Beast afterwards, even to go so far as being able to push the enemy forest and take the lake right up against the mountain all the way down at the bottom left. Are you a fan of using the Sunken Tower to deny the Wood Alley double collecting, or do you like getting the super aggressive lake spot?
I think it would be nice to get the aggressive lake spot. I mean, first of all, I think this tournament so far from Imperia's side seems to be draw into Frogify at the most opportune moments, definitely. Although, to be fair, he could have drawn it last time and he did not, so it was maybe not the best timing, but still very strong pickup. And the double Mystic Beast on the left side is, I think, very strong because it just puts so much of a clock on Daroka in order to most likely force him to play one of these X grinders defensively, or just bust out the Crackdown Beast and hope for some RNG on his side.
Yeah, Imperia, rather than moving the Wood Ellie, ends up moving his own Mystic Beast so that he can get the other one developed. And on top of that, he's now actually able to threaten that Wood Ellie if it's not dealt with or buffed. So the 4-3 with the Sunken Tower causing a huge amount of threat. Now, Zerikar can go for the Crackthorn, and are you in a situation where you have to go for the Crackthorn? It will potentially kill off that Sunken Tower.
I would personally assume that it will either kill off the Mystic Beast, which is very unlikely, or kill at least the Sunken Tower. If it does neither of these things, it would be very bad. And this is also always the risk that you run if you're playing these kind of RNG heavy creatures. I'm not sure if it. I think you might just still have to go for it because playing the X grinder defensively is not a very attractive option, just due to the 4 fights that Imperia still has. But he does decide to go for the double X grinder for defensive purposes and double the right side. So he's most likely hoping to get more value from the Crackdown Beast next turn, I assume.
Yeah, and I do think this is a very safe line from him. It means he's able to set up Crackthorn on the next turn, and it just helps guarantee that he's going to be getting collections and doesn't have to worry about any Ninja Toad plus Campfire shenanigans or anything like that. And as for the line for Imperia, it doesn't look so easy because ideally you want to collect with your 4-5 Mystic Beast, but very, very tempted to kill off both of the Axe Grinders this turn.
I think at this point, as Imperia, you have to kind of expect the Crackdown Beast to come out next turn. So he might just want to get use out of his Sunken Tower this turn to somehow achieve more collection or a favorable trade. But I'm not sure if it would be. I think you have to play the value game kind of against Crackdown because it's not that easy to outrace them actually. Especially with the double collection for Zarka on the right side. So I think double collecting with the 4-5 Mystic Beast might just be the best line of play actually after all, and possibly trading or even running away with the second Mystic Beast.
Now it looks like he's going to be able to deny the ability to double collect if he goes for the trade on the 4-3. And then he can still develop a Triton Trainer, so setting up collections, and Zerikar can play Crackthorn, but it's actually a pretty good Crackthorn because it's going to have a very high likelihood of killing that 4-1, and the buffs are going to be really decent on that Axe Grinder.
But where do you play it? On the left or on the right?
I think I would like to play it between the wells on the right, just because if you're running Grove Crawlers, it's very likely that you'll be able to get a teleport trade later on to contest a Triton Trainer. The big thing is just preventing a Mythmaker play from happening, so I think you want to avoid the Triton Trainer at all costs.
And also to avoid the tiny chance that you would not have killed off the one toughness creature on the left side, which would have enabled Imperia to potentially just trade into the Crackthorn if he got unlucky, if Sarkar got unlucky on the RNG. So I think I agree with that choice. And he still has a second Crackthorn beast that he can potentially just bust out next turn if it's favorable to him.
So Imperia currently has +2/+2 to the next jump creature he summons, so he can develop a Triton Trainer as a 5/5 or play Battletoads and get a 4/4 and a 2/2. And Battletoads looks like a very strong line to me. He went for the draw and didn't find any Ninja Toads like that, so he doesn't have any haste unit to deal with that Crackthorn.
But even if he had found the Ninja Toad, he couldn't have traded into the Crackthorn Beast, so I'm not even sure if he would have gone for that. I think the Triton Trainer is a very solid choice because this way he can keep the train of buffs running. He can potentially play another 5/5 Triton Trainer next turn, and then the Battletoads for just crazy amounts of value for the stats he gets.
So pretty unlikely that he goes for the gamble, but he could go for +1 Faeria, play the Crackthorn in the bottom left, and just hope that it either buffs your Crackthorn in the top right at least once or twice, or potentially kill off the 3/2, or at least deal 1 damage to the Triton Trainer. So there's some potential good pings, but very safe line is just to Flame Burst the 3/2, and I think we're likely to see that. Garridan off the top now. Could he play it next turn? Would it be worth it?
He
Probably not.
Yeah, but I kind of agree. I'm actually kind of partial to playing the Crackthorn Beast this turn. I think the chances of getting a somewhat favorable outcome are actually fairly high. Either killing off the 3/2 trainer or buffing his Crackthorn or damaging the 5/5 trainer. I think any of these options would have been okay, and it's still a lot of value you get for the amount of Faeria you pay. So I think I might have actually kind of liked that play, but now that he chose not to, he will just basically give the free trade with the 5/5 trainer into his Crackdown Beast, which, yeah, I don't know, is a bit disappointing, I suppose.
Alright, so Imperia has +2/+2 to the next jump creature he plays due to summoning the second Triton Trainer, so it's unlikely that Imperia will play into Garridan, just seeing that his opponent has banked Faeria now for an additional turn, which means if he drops anything, I expect it to be another trainer coming down as a 5/5, which will still take damage from the Garridan, but won't be quite as vulnerable to getting cleared off.
I think Garridan is still a very solid play next turn. If Imperia chooses to kill off the Crackthorn Beast with his 5/5 trainer, because he can kill off 2 creatures and get a 6/6 flying charge 2 on board, which is, yeah, I think very worthwhile. Would you trade into the Crackthorn Beast in Imperia's shoes, or would you choose just to go somewhere else maybe and keep the 5/5 alive for later?
Oh, I think you'd go for the trade for sure. I think maybe he might have been considering what land type to go for, and I think you just go for a lake above the Crackthorn.
Okay, yeah, I missed that play, to be honest. Yeah, absolutely. If you can collect and kill off while making just one land, I think that's a very solid choice. Although on the other hand, he already has 6 lakes, so it's not really that big of a difference in the end, I guess.
So Garridan as a potential play this turn, I don't think you go for the Crackthorn. It is favored to kill off the 5/1, but for the other creatures, it's not favored to kill either of them, so it would be a gamble to go for it. And the buffs on the Axe Grinder wouldn't be too efficient because it's already vulnerable to a Frogify, so he's going to go for the Garridan, sorry.
Yeah, I think the problem with Crackthorn and Garridan in hand is that generally you would prefer to play the Garridan and then play the Crackthorn immediately after to kill off anything that's left over on the board. But that just costs so much Faeria that's not very likely to happen. So often you're in a spot like this one where you would kind of like to play the Crackdown, you'd kind of like to play the Garridan, but playing one kind of prevents you from doing the other. So we just had to make a choice. And I think Garridan's just a safer pick overall, also due to his mobility and solid body.
Yeah, the best line for me that I can see now is just Imperia trying to go ham and developing creatures onto the board aggressively, because in terms of a value battle, there's no chance of him coming back into this unless he were to find back-to-back Wave Crash Colossus. So I'm a fan of him switching to the aggro game, and I expect that we just see a Water Alley come down. He can even Prophet of Tides just to move the Axe Grinder into the very middle of the map.
I'm not sure if I'd like the Prophet, but because he kind of has to expect a Ground Shaker to come down from a Darker side, because we haven't seen any of those yet. He definitely has the comfort of knowing that with the Garadan out, most likely the one big AoE threat that Darker is running is out, because most of the Crackdown decks don't choose to run Firestorm from what I've seen. So that definitely should make him much more comfortable in playing his Battletoads now that the Garadan is out.
And looking at the board now, Sarkar with a huge pickup with that Grove Collar. He can collect with the Axe Grinder, Grove Collar to collect, then +1, Flame Burst the 5/2, have the Axe Grinder kill off the 5/5 Water Alley. Is that a full clear? Oh, it's super close to a full clear. He'd be leaving just one Toad alive with that line.
Still looks extremely strong, and definitely most likely one of the best cards that he could hope to draw for this turn, especially considering the fact he didn't have to +1 draw for it. So it actually enables him to do this full clear, which he would not have been able to if he had just been forced to draw into an additional card.
Yeah, an amazing draw for him, and going to let him pick up the board all but one Toad.
And I bet this is a situation where Imperia kind of wished he would have played a classic Falcon Dive instead of the Campfire now to get rid of that 7/1.
Yeah, Imperia's in a very difficult situation. How do you come back into the board? Your opponent's on 15 Faeria. It's very unlikely that you can win in a all-in Surge now, due to the fact that he was able to clear off all of your creatures now super efficiently. Do you just go for setting up the Prophet of Tides to be your new double collector?
I think one of the problems that Imperia has in this game so far is that he didn't manage to draw into any of his Wave Crash Colossi so far, even though he's already halfway through his deck, and he really needed to get this discounted big body on the board right now. So I wouldn't even be surprised if he just chooses to go for... oh, he already went for the draw. Yeah, that's even worse. So I don't really think you want to drop the Prophet due to the same reasons of not having seen a second Crackdown Beast or a Ground Shaker so far. So I guess he's just hoping to go for double draw next turn, get maybe double Colossus or something like that.
Yeah, and it looks like he's deciding to play it very, very safely. He could have just flown up the Garadan 2 tiles and kept the Grove Collar double collecting and set up Garadan to go face, but instead just dashes up the Sagami Warrior after getting the aggressive force. Then Imperia picks up Wave Crash Colossus, so finally drawing his endgame creatures, but is it too late?
I think it might just be one turn too late, actually. If he had drawn into a Colossus last turn, it would have been so much better, because this free turn that Darkar got to set up aggressively might just be what turns the game around in his favor in the end, because he kind of has to assume that the Garadan will be able to clear off the Wave Crash Colossus, while the Sagami Warrior and eventually the Grove Collar will still be able to hit face or collect meanwhile.
The Frogify on the Garadan's going to deny that Crackthorn from potentially being a very good clear on it. But with Cypher's Wrath, you could actually still go for the gamble. It is favored for 2 pings to go onto that Wave Crash to put it down to 5 life. If you get lucky and 3-hit it, or a couple of buff your Toad, the Cypher's Wrath will finish it off quite nicely.
I think that's what Sarkar is most likely going to look for. On the other hand, I have to say that Imperia definitely made the best out of the situation he was in my opinion, because with the Campfire in hand and the Colossus, if Sarkar is not able to deal with it now, he theoretically he could have like a 2-turn lethal next turn by playing the Campfire. So I think he did what he had to do, but with the Crackdown Beast, I think chances are fairly high that the Colossus is going to die this turn if he chooses to play it.
Yeah, Zeraka actually going with the more defensive line of just developing that Wood Ellie to taunt it, and this is a little bit risky against Imperia because we know that Imperia runs Sunken Tower. So if a Sunken Tower is drawn into to pull off that Wood Ellie, Campfire hit face for 8 could be setting up a potential lethal next turn.
Yeah. Okay, but he prevents it by dropping that forest actually very heads up play in my opinion. Because now Imperia can't move his Wood Elemental anymore.
Yeah, very good safeguard. And what does Imperia do in this situation? You can trade into the Wood Ellie and then just develop Battletoads. And Zeraka actually isn't very fast in this race because he's only developed the Grove Crawler and Sagami Warrior to be hitting the face of Imperia. So Imperia has quite the amount of time to get some creatures onto the board.
Yes, he does, but I think Varka is still pretty favored just because of his presence on the board, which enables him to keep collecting while Imperia basically has to +1 for most of his plays on his turn. Which he's trying to change now with the Battletoads.
Zeraka with a pretty efficient clear now of the board if he wants to go for the Sagami Warrior hitting into the 2/2 and then playing the Crackthorn. Can even preemptively just Cypher's Wrath the Toad on the bottom left wall just to make sure the Crackthorn Paints are as much as possible going into that Wave Crash.
I think I kind of might have preferred of playing him playing the Crackdown Beast first to see how the pinks distribute, and he would have still been able to play the Flame Burst afterwards if need be. But yeah, I think this is still a very strong play, so I'd be surprised to see Imperia manage to pull back from so much damage to his face next turn.
Yeah, ends up with a very strong Crackthorn getting played, and it doesn't waste any pings. The ones that didn't go to a creature just went face, didn't leave any creatures weakened, and that's going to set up lethal with Imperia no way to counter it.
So what do you think Imperia is going to come back with now out of the decks that we've seen from him so far? Have we actually seen anything out of except for his blue deck so far?
I believe we saw Imperia win 3-0, if I'm not mistaken, so this is going to be the first time seeing his second deck, and I mean, I think if he's got mono green, we'll see mono green, but other than that, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, if he has mono green, the kind of mid game focused, late game focused mono green with Therian Golems, he definitely most likely will be going for that. But if he does not have that, for example, how would you rate the matchup of yellow tempo against green red Crackthorn?
I think it depends on the list, but the ones running Soul Pack that can go aggressive super fast, I think it's pretty favored in the matchup.
Okay. And he does go for what could be either yellow events or yellow tempo, apparently.
Choking Sands, I'm not actually sure if that improves the matchup, because ideally you want your Chargers to be killing off the Sagamis or killing off Wood Ellies, or you want your Shaitan Demons to be fighting those, so choking is actually one of your less efficient answers to them.
I think Choking Sands is fine to deal with a Wood Elemental most importantly. If you play it on like a Sagami Warrior or something, it's not very, very strong, and also you have to keep in mind that there's actually not that many creatures that you can kill off with the Choking Sands against the Crackthorners, because most of them have 4 attack or higher. So yeah, probably most likely not the most versatile card to pick up, especially early on in the match.
Getting to see an interesting tech card from Imperia. We see the Cartographer in his hand, which means maybe there might be some Wranglers, or he's just using it for the acceleration and the event synergy for Windstorm Colossus. Now, Zeraka with the Groundshaker in hand is going to have a very great answer if Imperia does go for that Cartographer line.
Yeah, I think this is definitely not the starting hand that Imperia was hoping to get. A lot of slow cards which don't really enable him to collect early on safely. Most likely, like you said, we will see Ground Shaker next turn, and that leaves him with no creatures and a ton of Faeria and fairly expensive Windstorm Colossus in hand.
Yeah, Sarkar with a great line here, just dropping the Ground Shaker, and it looks like he's pausing just to think whether he wants to get it on the right side and just try and push up one angle, or if he wants to play it on the left and play very back against Imperia.
I think I prefer for him to go up the right side and apply pressure as early as possible, because if you get the yellow deck the opportunity to come back into the game, set up some chargers and collecting spots, use all his movement tricks, generally as Crackdown you lack the tons of removal you'd need to keep the board clear, and that would might enable Imperia to stage a comeback with cheap Colossi and Windstorm Charger movement tricks.
Now, Imperia has a difficult decision of developing the charger on the well or in front of Orb. If he plays it in front of Orb, he can potentially set up a double-land Explore Flashwind line next turn to try and get into the Ground Shaker for 6 power, but it looks like he's just going to try and set up double collecting on the left instead.
I think Windstorm Charger is one of the strongest creatures that you can hope to draw against Crackdown, because they generally lack the kind of removal that you'd need to get rid of it. They have a lot of pings, and then they have like one Garadan and some targeted bursts that they just have to draw into. But even then, you'd still make a net Faeria gain from them killing the Charger. So, and on the other hand, it still has the threat of killing off any big creatures that you might drop yourself. So. I like the spot that Imperia put it in, because it enables him to either double collect or just move to the right side if he needs to, and with the Flashwind and clear any aggressive threats.
Yeah, and Terra's going to have a really tough time defending against this now, because even Shaitan Demons coming down next turn, any Colossus after Event Synergy, like, there's a lot of threats that Imperia can now start threatening, and honestly, just even doing Desert and then Explore, you can Flashwind your Charger just for the single event, and then play a 6-cost Windstorm. Looks very, very strong.
Yeah, absolutely. And if he wanted to wait one more turn, he could even play drop the Outland Ranger first and play the Campfire if he wanted to, and make the Colossus even cheaper and have the Campfire for a favorable trade, maybe on the Ground Shaker or the Wood Elemental.
Now, he can just take the trade on the Wood Ellie if he wants to by doing Desert, then Explore, then Flashwind your Charger to kill it, and then play the Colossus. And even that looks like a pretty strong line. It would put him to 8 Faeria, and then he would play a 6-cost Colossus. So even going into the next round with a decent amount of Faeria exchange, but it would make his Charger very vulnerable to the Ground Shaker remaining at 1 life.
Basically, I personally don't think it's worth it, because you lose a lot of your movement potential when playing the Flashwind, and you generally offer up your Charger for free to the Ground Shaker, which you then don't really have a nice option of getting rid of. So I prefer for him to hold on to the Charger if he can.
Yeah, and it looks like he's also going to value that Flashwind more than 1 Faeria, as it would have discounted the Colossus, and it makes sense because you want to save it for your Charger to get it to that 6 power threshold, specifically for that Ground Shaker.
I think it's really heads-up play from Imperia. Now we are in the position that I tried to outline earlier, where kind of the yellow movement deck has a jump on the Crackdown deck just due to the movement effect and additional movement abilities that they have. And you are kind of struggling as the Crackdown deck now to try and establish board control while trying to get rid of these creatures that are so annoying to deal with, like the Charger in the back.
Yeah, exactly right. Something that Sarkar would have been hoping for would be a Horsemaster and then setting up the Ground Shaker for that, or, you know, finding a Grove Crawler and getting the Grove Crawler plus a buff, but unfortunately for Sarkar, he doesn't have any of that accessible to him at the moment. One of the lines I see is just making that aggressive mountain and honestly just summoning the Scummy Warrior in the top right, just so you can get that double collection in.
Have we even seen the movement tricks from Zarokar so far in the previous match? Because I can't remember it at least.
We saw the Grove Collar to kill off the blue creatures in the bottom left.
Ah, right. Okay, so at least he's definitely running Grove Collar, because I think the exact amount of movement tricks that the Crackdown decks run is very much open to debate. I prefer running 2 Horsemaster and 2 Grove Collar each, just so you have a broad spectrum of options. But I think many actually chose to cut one or the other completely, or maybe just run 3 movement tricks total. So we'll have to see what Zarka chose to go with.
Yeah, and Imperia has a couple of lines here. One of the simplest looks to me just like making a land for the Charger, using Flashwind on the Colossus after hitting the 3/4 to Flashwind it down, and then having the Charger hidden for 4 into the Wood Alley. Actually, is there a better way of doing this?
I think is there an option to get rid of the Ground Shaker with the Charger this turn?
Not that I can see. He can instead just go for Outland Ranger Campfire, and that will get the Charger to the 4 power. Have the Charger hit into the creature and Flashman back.
He could kill the Ground Shaker. He could just move up, kill the Wood Elemental, use the Flashwind to move back his Colossus. Yeah, and then play the Outland Ranger and buff and kill the Ground Shaker.
Yeah, and that's going to be an extremely strong line, very well spotted by Imperia. And dealing with that Ground Shaker is going to be huge because it denies Serikar just from even being able to collect. It shuts down his ability to do movement trick combos, and Zerikar's best line now looks like just Flameburst, Cypher's Wrath on that Colossus and collect.
Which is still fine, I think. I mean, he still has 2 solid creatures in hand. He has the removal. Imperia will get to drop his Windstorm Charger next turn, which kind of gives him the initiative. But it's definitely not as if Sarkar was under insane pressure as well, I think. But I definitely agree that he should probably go for the clear this turn.
Now, it is a lot of value to Cypher's Wrath at 3/2, so I wonder if that's what he's pausing for, because he can actually just develop the Wood Alley +1, then Cyphers, and then after the Colossus kills off your Sagami, you can Flame Burst it afterwards, if you don't find a Crackthorn as a possible play.
I think I would prefer just... Yeah, okay. I mean, he would probably love to have a second Cypher's Wrath instead of the Flame Burst now. But then again, I don't think it's as big a difference in this matchup, because what you would generally prefer to have is most likely any card that deals 4 damage. Maybe if he even for example, tech Bomb Slingers for this matchup, those would be amazing. But I don't really expect them to come out, to be honest.
First Cartographer, now Royal Judge, all kinds of tech cards in Imperia's lineup, and Royal Judge, very strong, specifically for helping you in the red matchup, because it allows you to safeguard your Chargers for killing those Ground Shakers, and Charger is like your win condition card against red. It helps you survive against all of their AoE, and just get some very strong trades.
Yeah, that's true, but on the other hand, basically, the Royal Judge is a glorified 1/1 if it comes down to it, so it will most likely die to collateral damage by the Crackthorn or Ground Shaker, so it's still not a ton of value. You generally might look at getting out of it, but it's also very flexible, because you can choose to take the punishment if you need to get rid of something, or you can choose to go with the safeguard. So I really like the card. I just think it's been a bit pushed out of the meta just due to the dominance of Crackthorn and Ground Shakers in the past month.
Definitely, and Serikar now with the ability to just +1 Faeria, develop that Cypher, and just wait and hope to find Grove Crawlers, hope to find a Horsemaster. By playing the Cypher, you're going to cause so much threat to Imperia that he might even give up on optimal lines just to play around it. And it looks better than killing off the Outland Ranger, because either way, that Charger's going to be double collecting.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And that Cypher is such a crazy threat to Imperia, because if he actually manages to kill off the Charger with the Cypher, he would be insanely big and would basically need to get a Last Nightmare asset, which we haven't seen so far. But I think it's safe to assume that Imperia will be running at least 2, most likely in an event list like this.
Yeah, and Imperia picking up the second Soul Pact, not exactly what he was hoping to find. And there's Zerkar with the Grove Crawler now.
But can he use it this turn?
Not yet. I don't see any possible way of getting a good line in.
I think he needs a Wood Elemental first to set up more lands.
We have Scorch typing in the chat just that he can actually smork, so he could go 8 damage to face, and with 2 Flame Bursts in hand, that would actually be a lot of damage, especially because you see these yellow event decks running Shaitan Demons, you see them with Soul Pacts often enough, so hitting face there actually has a lot of synergy. Or a lot of value, sorry, in the matchup.
It might have worked out for him, but on the other hand, do you really want to risk it? If you have the Grove Collar in hand for the potential crazy play and getting rid of the Charger next turn, so I think Zerkar going with the safer play might pay off for him, depending on what he plays now.
Okay, so he can double land, play Wood Ellie, then play the Grove Crawler, eat the Charger, but you could instead Grove Crawler, sorry, actually I guess you would Crackthorn first, just so that you don't waste any buffs on that Grove Crawler. So you could Grove Crawler, then Crackthorn, and just go ham. Just everything face. SM Orc in the chat. Now, do you prefer going for the value trades, or do you go face? Because that is a lot of damage, especially with 2 Flame Bursts in hand.
And it might just be the best play. I mean, he could still get unlucky with the buffs and have it stick on the Crackthorn, I suppose. I kind of like the play just due to the double Flame Burst in hand, like you pointed out. But it seems like Zerkar, just moving on with his previous choice in the turn before, decides to stick with the safer place of setting up a lot of pressure near Imperia's Orb for next turn.
Yeah, and it makes sense. You've seen your opponent bank on Faeria. You've seen them play multiple Outland Rangers. You have to know they have a lot of events. Saving that Charger, it's unlikely they can, kill you in one turn, but a lot of crazy stuff can happen with a Charger on the board, so decides to play it very safely and almost in an unlosable situation at the moment.
Yeah, I think at this point it's looking like a win for Zerkar, which he might have to grind out for a couple more turns due to the Imperial Guards that Imperia just created. Although I think being halfway through his deck, we still haven't seen a Last Nightmare. It's still fairly likely that he will draw into one eventually. So maybe he can stall out long enough in order to be able to come back into Cypher, but this guy is just going to get so huge.
Yeah, Imperia actually can develop both Windstorm Colossus and Kaleem if he wanted to, just to try and set up as much pressure as possible, and I'd be a little bit surprised if he doesn't go for that, because it seems like his only way of winning now is to develop both creatures and hope to smork.
He better be fast about it. Yeah, he does go for it. That's a lot of pressure. I really like it.
Zerkar picking up a buff, and that is lethal. Yeah, that's lethal.
Yeah, with the double Flame Burst, it's kind of hard not to find lethal, I guess. Not even counting the buff he has.
Do you play the top deck lethal? No, it looks like he plays the Flame Burst from hand.
It depends on what kind of message you want to send. I kind of like playing the top deck lethal just to kind of tilt your opponent. Especially if you're looking, technically, if you're looking at a best of 5 like this, if you can get some additional like emotional damage to your opponent by saying, "Yeah, whoa, I top deck my lethal," I mean, rationally looked at it, it's a solid choice. But then again, yeah, I think it was pretty much over at that point anyway, so it probably wouldn't have mattered so much either way. And now we see the mirror.
Yeah, time for Imperia to show off his green-red list, and I think if I can recall, Imperia is a fan of playing Feed the Forest, so we'll get to see whether that has an impact in this matchup. See how the different tech cards of both of these players line up.
To be fair, I'd say that Imperia most likely would not seem super confident in his ability of winning this mirror matchup with his tech choice, because otherwise he might have busted out the deck earlier if he had like tech according to the mirror match. I still agree that we've seen him run Feed the Forest in the past, I think, so he might just go for it in this deck as well. I'm personally not a huge fan of Feed the Forest if you don't run dedicated creatures to sacrifice. Basically, it's a bit of a glorified cycling, which can, on the other hand, also sometimes be a dead weight in your hand if you don't have the creatures to sacrifice.
That's true, but it also enables some very strong combos with Traktorn and even repositioning creatures. You have a ground shake between the walls, and suddenly you're just like, hey, I could just switch, 6 Faeria from the walls, plus my production of 3, and just drop like 9 Faeria aggressively and hope to just go for an all-in play. And Imperia, unfortunately, has 2 Wood Ellies to start with, and isn't player 2, so had to wait until turn 2 to get out the first Wood Ellie, and this is going to allow Sarikar to get into the walls and have the potential of buffing first to get a trade.
I mean, I wouldn't technically say that drawing 2 wood elementals as a starting hand is unlucky. I think it's generally a strong card to have to open up a match with. Obviously, you would prefer to go second, so you can play it immediately. And Sarkar did manage to draw an Axe Grinder early on, which is most likely the best card that you can have to open up, aside from maybe Sagami Warrior, to accomplish the same thing. So yeah, a bit of an advantage in the early game, but I don't think it really mattered that much at this point.
Yeah, a key thing to point out now is Imperia actually has Flame Burst in hand, so he can just make that mountain and Flame Burst off that Axe Grinder, and with having the only creature on board, it's going to allow him to start snowballing in the matchup. But Imperia hesitating for a second of, do you go between the walls or do you just start building directly down?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think that's one of the questions which tell you a bit about the player and how they like to play the games. I would most likely go for a collection on both of your wells for the safe control style, also because you have the Cypher in hand. But on the other hand, if you have the Cypher, you could as well argue, okay, you might want to apply pressure as early as possible in order to force your opponent to retreat from his well.
A little surprised by Imperia developing the Cypher instead. Now, getting the Cypher on the board before your opponent has the ability to contest it is pretty strong because it's going to allow Imperia to have the first action, but it did allow Zarikar to collect a Faeria, and he can now just, preemptively buff his Axe Grinder. Another line I see is to explore Mountain on the left side of the orb, develop that Ground Shaker and Flame Burst Wood Ellie to finish it off, but that's probably a little bit too preemptive with the fact that Cypher will be collecting the wall either way.
I think you could also go for Explore Mountain on the left side, set up the second X Grinder to collect. But with the Cypher being on the board, he now has to be really scared of any kind of movement tricks that Imperia might have in hand. So he will most likely be looking at any options that he have of getting to deal with that Cypher as soon as possible, and he might just want to move away from the well, potentially.
Yeah, it goes for the Ground Shaker, and there's no real reason to Flame Burst this turn, so it looks like he's just going to save it.
Yeah, and he does retreat from his well, which I kind of agree with. It doesn't really cost him as much because he can still move back if he feels it's safe next turn. What do you think about choosing not to Elderwood Embrace his X Grinder this turn? Would you have preferred to do that?
He had to make a mountain, so he was unable to make the Embrace,
okay.
unless you were suggesting instead of Ground Shaker. So Imperia able to get the Axe Grinder spot now if he wants to, just make that mountain, double collect. it would make him a little bit vulnerable to a Grove Crawler line from Zerikar, so Imperia, if he's considering that, I guess you Mountain Collect and then preemptively Guidance to buff your Cypher to a 7/7.
Actually, I'm just looking at the last turn, and I think I might have, and Zarka as well, might have jumped the gun a bit by retreating with the X-Runner because, yeah, maybe he was afraid of Horsemaster to kill off, but I don't think there was a way for him to, for Imperia to kill the X-Runner with his Cypher that turn, because he would have needed to create 2 lands, and that would precluded him from creating a forest, and he was lacking the Faeria to play both Wood Elemental and another movement trick, so maybe he could have stayed as well, but most likely he was valuing his X-Grinder and didn't want it to trade into a Horsemaster with Elemental. But now it's going to die anyway.
Yep, and Imperia actually very cleverly protecting his Cypher. By stepping down the Wood Ellie like he did, he's safeguarded himself against a Scummy Grove Crawler line of killing the Cypher. So it forced Zerikar to kill that 3/3 in. We can see Zerikar has Flame Burst, so if he had Grove Crawler, he would still go for it. But now it's looking like just a Flame Burst Cypher's Wrath to finish off that Cypher.
I think he would have loved to have a Grove Crawler now, but sadly he did not manage to draw into it. And yeah, I think Cypher's Wrath Flame Burst is the most solid play. Also, it prevents Imperia from double collecting next turn just due to the positioning he chose for his Wood Elemental in order to protect his Cypher from any active attacks.
An interesting thing was that Imperia actually double landed on his turn, which means if Zerikar develops the forest above his previous forest, he can deny the X-Grinder spot, at least in that tile, which means Imperia will be forced to override his prairie to get the X-Grinder spot.
And one thing to note is that Zarkar chooses to double prairie this turn, which kind of delays his Crackthorn Beast by an additional turn, which is generally not what you want to do if you're playing Crackthorn Beast, because you want to play these high-value creatures as soon as possible, and now it will be at least most likely 3 more turns, unless he draws like into Wood Elemental to make it cheaper. But he didn't draw any so far, so I guess it's fine.
Imperia with a pretty strong line now of just collecting, making a mountain, dropping the ground shaker. Seems fairly strong up against the Zerikar's creature.
Yeah,
I mean, he would need...
Yeah, so... in the green-red mirror match, often it comes down to the first player to play a ground shaker will get a ground shaker on played on him in turn, because there's just not a lot of creatures you can actually kill off with the ground shaker, and then you have a 5/6 threatening the opponent's 5/5, which generally puts you like the 1 damage ahead that you often want, also against stuff like Sideman. So it's often in these matchups that ground shaker is more of a glorified 5/6 creature with additional 1 burn of damage.
Yeah, and Imperia can get to 3 forests, 3 mountains, but does not have any Crackthorn in his deck yet, so no real reason to develop the lands. He can just go for draws, or go for the Wood Ellie and +1 Scummy Warrior, and it would be developing 4 creatures onto the board, but you'd be able to start pressuring potentially 8 damage to face per turn.
Goes for the +1 Faeria. I'm not sure if I might have preferred to see a draw here. What do you think?
Yeah, he's extremely vulnerable to a Firestorm into a Ground Shaker, or a Firestorm into even just a Crackthorn on the following turn, so I'm a bit surprised he goes for the 4 creatures, but...
On the other hand, they are fairly sturdy, at least with the 4 toughness or even 6 on the ground shaker. So even if, for example, Zarkar had Gaudan in hand, it would actually not be so bad. And I don't think you have to expect stuff like, I mean, even if it's like ground shaker into Firestorm, which would be horrible, that's not something you play around if you're against a Crackthorn deck. And even then, Zarkar would lack the Faeria for it. So it's fairly safe to go for the offensive play and just try to put as much pressure onto Zarkar as possible while he can't defend.
Now, Zerikar needs to get his special lands built. He needs to get to 3 forests, which means Making the forest for the Axe Grinder to get Horsemaster to kill the Wood Ellie looks very strong. He could alternatively Horsemaster the Ground Shaker to trade into that Sagami, but then you're double landing with a Crackthorn in hand, so looks like his strongest line is to make the forest and start working towards that Crackthorn.
But then he's looking at taking a ton of damage next turn. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's I think it's probably still the best play.
Now, even if the 3-4 takes that trade, he does have the Crackthorn to finish it off, but looking at the hand of Imperia, Flame Burst in hand with Guidance in hand as well, that is a lot of damage to go face with.
Yeah, that's 10 damage he could deal this turn, and an additional 3 damage from the Flame Burst, which virtually puts Darkar to 6. And he might not even be able to clear both threats of the bottom off on his turn, so looks very scary. Or maybe he could just go for Wood Elemental plus 1 Faeria and the Runin's Guidance this time. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think I'm a fan of the Runin's Guidance with the Wood Ellie. That would set the Sagami to a 5-6, and that survives Ground Shaker, at least without any buffs, so Zerikar would have to have Ground Shaker or Crackthorn or an Embrace, but then the Embrace is not strong enough to kill off the creatures fast enough for Zerikar to defend the board, so Wood Ellie Guidance looks very, very strong.
He's scared. He's scared of the Wraith. I would have played that differently. I would have played the Wood Elemental next to Zarakar's Orb to just go ham, threaten lethal, because that way he would have also protected his Ground Shaker from being killed off this turn even more.
Now that said, Feed the Forest shenanigans can be pretty crazy, and if Imperia is running Feed, then he might be assuming the opponent has the potential of running it. And looking at the board, if he didn't play that defensively and the Axe Grinder hit face for 7, you feed it off, you teleport up a Ground Shaker, you drop a Crackthorn, potentially double buff or buff plus Flame Burst. You're looking at a lot of damage to go face.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of using the Wood Elemental as fodder to keep your HP up if you're not under threat of being killed off next turn, and you could potentially threaten lethal yourself.
And here we see Zerikar making the decision of, do you hit into the Sagami first and then Crackthorn so that your buffs are more likely to buff up your Horsemaster, hopefully to set up the kill, and it does, and it lives! Huge Crackthorn coming out for Zerikar.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an amazing outcome for Zerikar here. And now he's suddenly set up in a very solid spot.
Yeah, Imperia needs to find Cypher's Wrath and multiple Flame Bursts now to finish off this game, and
I think he might even have to play the Flame Burst defensively.
there is the feed. So,
Yeah.
correctly guessed that he's running feed, and it probably played into the mind game of wanting to hyper defend because of that.
But then again, like I said initially, what good is the feed going to do him now? Because, I mean, you don't really want to get one Faeria just to cycle and kill off your double collector. That's really not an option. And what kind of creatures are you hoping to draw into in order to make best use of the feed now? Grovecrawler, maybe?
Yeah, speaking of Grovecrawler, Zerikar just picked up one and can go face for 7. Looks like actually a very, very strong line. Just for helping speed up the clock. That way he's not vulnerable to just eventual burn damage.
Yeah, also the Grovecrawler can contest the Wood Elemental on the right side if and prevent Imperia from double collecting next turn. So I think that's a really strong play. Ooh.
Trying to think if there was a safe line that he might be considering with just dashing the Sagami Warrior beside his orb, but it looks like Grovecrawler is just his best line, just to get that clock put onto Imperia.
But why did he choose to move his Crackthorn down. Is he afraid of movement tricks in Imperia's hand?
I think just in case Imperia plays like a Wood Ellie, the 2/4 can't actually deal with it, so he wanted the Crackthorn to be able to contest it.
Mm. And Imperia drawing to the Ground Shaker. That's perfect answer, I guess.
This is where we see the feed value. So he can develop the Ground Shaker, feed on it, and then play an Axe Grinder as a 5/4 and have a Faeria positive from that play.
And the Grove Caller as well. So I think you definitely want to play the Ground Shaker, right?
Yeah, I'm wondering now if you actually go for the Grove Caller just to hit face. Definitely start with Ground Shaker and then feed on the Ground Shaker, but then it actually looks really strong just to Grove Caller, potentially to hit into the Orb of Zerikar. But we'll want to see what he draws into first.
But do you really want to feed away the Ground Shaker?
I think with it being above the Grove Crawler or between the wall, it's just not relevant enough.
I mean, he could just play Ground Shaker, kill off the 7/1, and then wait and potentially hit face with the Ground Shaker and the Grove Caller next turn, like Sparks just pointed out.
Guess that's what he's gonna wait for, but it's interesting because I guess he's not weak to AoE in the sense that Firestorm actually doesn't contest the Ground Shaker, but a buff plus Cypher's Wrath, any buff plus Cypher's Wrath would potentially just clear off the board.
Could clear the Ground Shaker, sure, but even then he'd still be set up in a position where he can double collect. He still has creatures in hand. I personally just think the Ground Shaker is such a strong creature in this matchup that I don't really like killing it off instantly just to gain some Faeria back, because the chances of getting a threat that is higher than the Ground Shaker is actually not that high in my opinion. Unless he draws like into Crackthorn Beast.
Now, Zerikar having to defend as much as possible because that Ground Shaker has a huge threat due to any movement tricks, so going to actually pass up on collecting just to get out that, just to get those body blocks in, and actually develops the Ground Shaker aggressively in the top left. And
that's GG, isn't it? Oh, is he? No. +1 Grove Caller. Oh, he only has the Cypher's Wrath. Yeah, damn it. It's just
7 damage. So the line currently, as it stands, is the Cypher's Wrath at Crackthorn. That's a 3/2. Play the Grove Crawler to move the Ground Shaker onto the force that it was on, and then feed the Grove Crawler and hope to find Flame Burst for lethal.
Yeah.
Now he can do this by collecting with the Wood Ellie and then doing +1 so that he gets to the 5 Faeria threshold.
Really tight spot for both players here with the Ground Shakers on the board and the low HP. But I think Imperia probably has it just because Zerikar is missing the Faeria that he'd need for lethal next turn, even if he doesn't die this turn.
Yeah, I mean, Imperia has the option of playing it safe if he doesn't find wow, actually goes for getting the Wood Ellie to trade in and just go face for 5. But as I was just going to mention, if he collected with the Wood Ellie and did the Grove Crawler feed line, he could at the very least hit his 5/5 into the Grove Crawler afterwards. Imperia picking up Grove Crawler, able to clear off the Ground Shaker now, but is that just game?
I think it's game. I don't see, unless he's running Feed the Forest himself, that he can top deck into, and even then I don't really see how Zerikar will be able to get the remaining damage in. He's just missing the Faeria, even if he had the cards. I mean, he has the cards for lethal in hand, but he's just 2 Faeria short.
Yeah, the only possible way Zerikar lives that I can think of is the Grove Crawler to teleport the Ground Shaker to the bottom right wall to collect, step down, kill the Ground Shaker, and then feed the forest on it into a Wood Ellie, and then Wood Ellie to taunt up the 2 forests. So
Maybe your top deck
It's-
Rune Command or something.
yeah, his next 2 draws have to be perfect.
I don't think he's even running Feed the Forest, to be honest. It's not the most common cards in the Crackdown decks, and we haven't seen it so far.
Yep, and that looks like Imperia is going to have lethal as Zerkar cannot defend his orb.
Yeah. Okay. But he did. I want to point out that he did not play the Feed the Forest.
So Imperia on his final deck, but manages to pull off a win. And now Zerkar has the option to counter with either of his 2 remaining decks.
And what would you say are the strongest options if you had like a blind pick of any decks that you could play? What would you take to take down Crackdown?
Well, I would like to run green or even just yellow events. But seeing as we saw the green-red Crackthorn, it's unlikely that he's got mono green, so very likely we see the yellow events come out, and that's what he's going to be playing.
Might even be full mythic as well, like we've seen earlier from Sweetie, I think. Still a bit of a shame that you don't get the Mythic Explore if all of your deck is Mythic. I'm still hoping that they will add that feature at some point in the future. It just looks so awkward.
Mythic Explore card, that'll be interesting. Looking at the starting hands of both players, I mean, Imperia has the Wood Ellie. It's a decent start for him. Unfortunately, not player 2, but going to be very strong for him nonetheless. And Zerkar with the Explorer, with Charger Fanatic, very, very strong start for him, especially with picking up that Fleshman now.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Although on the other hand, Imperia has Grove Caller and potential Ground Shaker or Cypher's Wrath to maybe even be able to deal with the Charger before it can cause havoc, or even the double Cypher's Wrath that he picked up now. Would you prefer playing this double Cypher's Wrath now just to be safe, or try and wait for a more tempo-oriented play with the Grove Caller later on?
Double Cypher's Wrath coming down this turn would deny the double collect, and almost certain it's going to be the play. Just to stop the potential snowball of Zerkar, because even a lot of events get played with that, and Zerkar doesn't have a good position to summon a demon, and that's one of the most popular creatures you see other than the Chargers, so it completely makes sense to double Ciphers, and that's what we see Imperia go for.
And one of the potential issues that you can run in if you're playing these event-heavy yellow decks is that there's actually not that many early collectors that you have. And this is kind of the situation that Zauerkar finds himself in, because he has tons of removal in hand and movement effect, but he's forced to play the Aura Dream Fanatic as a collector, and if Imperia manages to get rid of that, he's kind of run out of collectors.
Now that said, Imperia does have a lot of event synergy in hand, so if he's able to find Colossus and get those down in a couple turns, it will be his snowball effect to get into this game. And even with the Last Nightmares, which means if Ground Shakers come down, he's going to be able to get some decent Last Nightmares off.
But even then, I think Ground Shaker is probably the best card that you can Last Nightmare in this matchup, but it's still not great, because it's a 6/6 Faeria trait, and you will still get the value of the damage that you deal with the Ground Shaker, so it's not the best card to draw, especially early on in the match, I think, if you're against yellow, if you're against Crackdown.
Yeah, and I actually think Zerkar is in a very difficult spot here. He can double land to double collect, and then actually flash one to hit face, play the Soul Pack, and then dash up a Colossus afterwards. And with running multiple movement tricks into the deck, it's pretty likely that you'll find another movement trick for your Colossus afterwards to be able to contest face as well. It would open him up to being vulnerable to a Horsemaster or Grove Crawler, but either way, double collecting makes you vulnerable to that.
I think it's definitely not a bad play to consider at this stage, because even with the Grove Caller in hand, Imperia would not be able, with the cards he has right now, would not be able to kill off the Windstorm Colossus. But it seems like Sauerkraut chooses to go for a more defensive play instead. Or at least semi-aggressive play instead.
Yeah, Zerikar wanted to be very careful with how he uses the Flashman, wants to make sure he has it for the Colossus to go face. Just to make sure he's sped up his aggression and didn't allow Imperia time to find his cracked horns.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that last turn. I kind of thought that Zaurka might have been able to dash his Colossus up anyway without using the Flashman, but he had already had to create double land in order to move up with the Fnatic, so that wasn't an option. I think that's one of the reasons that he went for this play. If he could have threatened face without movement effects with the Colossus next turn, probably would have just been better.
Yeah, one of the strongest lines I can see for Imperia now is just to play the Grove Crawler and teleport the 5/4 just to block the Colossus. What do you think about that? Just force to the right side of your mountain, play the Grove Crawler beside on the left side, and then just teleport.
But are you really that scared of the Colossus next turn that you want to give him like free fodder?
I think you're pretty scared, but that said, it's not even that bad of trades though, because assuming your 5/4 hits in, I mean, Axe Grinder's already a buff creature and it's doing more damage than cost.
But yeah, even then, Darka still needs to play a movement effect this turn or to hit face, and with the Wood Elemental on the board, potentially with a buff and Cypher out now, Imperia could look at Grove Caller, buff, killing off the Colossus with a Cypher to make it huge. I think that's looking very attractive as well. And maybe that's what he's hoping for.
Yeah, now the best line for sure is just a Flashman, get that face hit in, and just develop that demon.
Yeah, and even have the Last Nightmare as backup. I think he would have loved to have one additional Faeria to maybe get rid of the Cypher this turn, but even so, it's still very strong.
Now, Imperia actually has a couple of aggressive lines he could go for if he's feeling confident enough. He can just make that aggressive forest, use Grove Crawler to teleport Cypher or the Axe Grinder to hit face, and Wood Ellie would be taunting up that 7/7 Colossus.
It's kind of risky though, but because if like Sauerkraut draws into Choking Sand and he can't actually. I think he can't actually lethal. Or with an Outland Ranger. I don't know. I don't really think I might like my odds in that situation of suffering so much damage.
Yeah, Sarikar instead going for the very safe line of just killing off that Shaitan Demon and growing his Cypher. And this Colossus is getting surrounded now by Soraka.
And he's killing off the Collector as well. So Imperia now in a tough spot. Zaurka now in a tough spot because there's not a lot of Faeria he can gain this turn. So he basically has to play with what he has accumulated throughout the early game so far. So do you Last Nightmare the Cypher and kill off the Wood Elemental now, or is there something better you could do?
I think that's your best line, is just developing the Outland Ranger and Last Nightmare and Cypher.
Still not the worst spot, but do you prefer the defensive placement of the Outland Ranger, or would you prefer to have placed it more aggressively near the top of the board?
Yeah, I think the more aggressive spot is a little bit better because if Imperia goes face, he's going to be going face with a buff, or he's going to be stepping down a tile out of range of the Outland anyway. So I'm not sure what the Outland's actually accomplishing with where it is.
Yeah, I agree. And if you get even one more face hit in with the Colossus, actually the chances that the Ranger might have finished off the game are not that small.
Now looking at it through Imperia, how do you increase the chance that you survive and set up lethal as fast as possible? And it looks like he's going to be playing the Sagami Warrior just with the aid of Ground Shaker on the next turn to kill off that Colossus.
Yeah, and if you now look at the potential option of having the Outland Ranger on the desert at the top, we'd be looking at an additional 10 to 11 damage right now, which Zarka might have been able to deal. So I think it might have just been preferable. But now he does actually have the option of killing off the X-Grinder in the bottom, or even double soul draining it and keeping it collector.
Yeah, this is actually a really difficult decision because I think you would just look at this as doing a double soul drain line, but if you read into the 2/4 collecting, you would assume that there's no buff. Otherwise, he would have buffed it. So if you can't fire your Colossus, you make it live to a Ground Shaker type effect, and it would be a little bit vulnerable to Crackthorn, but it would still have to get lucky with the Crackthorn.
Can he kill the X-Grinder? Couldn't he just kill the X-Grinder and the Sagami Warrior and hit face with the Colossus? By using the Campfire on the Outland Ranger and then double soul draining the Warrior?
He's one Faeria short for that.
He drew. Okay, sorry, I missed that. Yeah, okay. Because otherwise I think that might have just been the best play.
Yeah, so as it stands, I'm pretty sure you have to either double soul drain the Sagami Warrior or campfire your Colossus and soul drain the Axe Grinder trade with your Outlandon. It looks like he ends up going for the more aggressive line of just soul draining the Sagami Warrior twice, and looking like a very strong line at the moment. Imperia needs to find a teleportation effect, and fast. Though of course Flame Burst would do it too if he finds it off feed.
Yeah, but which creature do you feed actually?
Oh, I imagine you feed the Grove Crawler after double collecting.
But then if you draw into some kind of movement effect, you kind of lack the ability to clear the Grove Crawler if he's maybe running Horse Masters, for example, because he can't really reach the Colossus with his X-Grinder as it is.
Imperia doesn't run Horsemaster, right? He only runs Grove Crawlers, so his movement trick would just be a Grove Crawler to teleport the Axe Grinder afterwards.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I mean, we might not have seen his complete deck so far, but yeah, maybe he's just choosing to go with only Grove Crawlers instead. It still looks really rough for him.
Yeah, he can go for the gamble of Ground Shaker, feed on Ground Shaker, and then Crackthorn, and this is that strong combo. It also opens up the ability to find Flame Burst.
Just run Horsemaster.
Yeah, Horsemaster actually found.
But now he's already moved his Grove Crawler, so... Oh.
And that's going to be game. Imperia's
GG.
going to be winning another match and tying the series now.
No, it's game over.
Oh, sorry, Soraka's the yellow player. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's
so
game
Soraka
over.
winning 3-1 now over Imperia.
And knocking out another one of the top players from the tournament.
So we didn't get to see Soraka's third deck, I guess, but green-red Crackthorn and the yellow event doing very well for him, and now tossing things back over to Akrablad at the desk.
What a fantastic match from both of those players. Imperia once again getting another top 4 performance, but unfortunately for him, he will not have a chance at the gold this time. But he should be pretty happy with his general performance as a monthly cup competitor. And Zarakar is going to take his first semi-final game, taking him to the grand finals, and wow, we have an exciting grand finals for you guys. Scorch, what did you think of that series?
Yeah, that was really cool series to see. I think there was a lot of little individual lines in the games that really could have swung one way or another. Zarakar playing red-green and then Imperia getting the red-green. The double collection spots were really important throughout that series. Just for some of those who are newer to the games or even newer to the game or newer to some of these type of archetypes, this is definitely a series where you can look at the importance of far side double collection when you're fighting for positioning on one side of the board with your opponent, because I think that was very important for the course of that game, of just the amount of times one player or the other had that double collection spot and was able to continue to pump out creatures or effects from their hand because they had the Faeria to do it. But a bit unfortunate for Imperia of just the way that it went with that Crackthorn at the end. But yeah, I think it was a great series overall. Zerikar, showing a great performance here.
There was one little thing I felt Zerikar could have done in the Crackthorn mirror, I believe. He was set up defensively at the bottom, and in the end, he had a Crackthorn in hand, and he went for a forest, played a defensive Crackthorn to set up a clear on the two creatures that were setting up lethal. Alternatively, what I think he could have done is done double neutral. One neutral where that forest was at the bottom, and one neutral above his forest aggressively, and then pushed the Crackthorn aggressively that turn. And if the Crackthorn had no influence on the board of that outside of its damage, like the body itself didn't mean anything. So he could have pushed another aggressive creature with that Sagami Warrior, and as it turned out, the pings and the buffs did work out in his favor, and he was able to clear the aggression. So I felt like if he just made that one little adjustment there, just played a little more aggressively, he could have taken a 3-0 sweep there.
Yeah, that's always something with the Crackthorn, is sometimes you play it in a different position because you're okay, if it's worst case scenario and it doesn't clear everything or the buffs don't go the right way, I need the body of that Crackthorn in the right position. But just in that spot, it worked out perfectly, and he was playing for it basically to not work out perfectly, which essentially you're playing not to lose instead of playing to win, which is something that we always touch on in those types of matches. But yeah, that one I was actually really interested in the cards played from both players, because they were both getting really low on event resources where they needed their creatures really to pan out in the right way. So like you said, even just that 3/3 body of the Crackthorn could have been very important for Zerikar to actually take that game.
Well, ultimately, if he did push 3 damage with that Crackthorn, on his last turn he had 4 Faeria and a Grove Caller. That would have set up lethal, unless that Crackthorn got removed.
I think he actually had like lethal in hand, but
Yes.
not enough Faeria to play it with the Grove Caller and the Flame Burst in hand there with the Ground Shaker on board. So yeah, even just that extra little bit of damage could have been really important, because I think it would have been alive for a couple turns as well.
Yeah, it was hard. I think it was tough because he already had to deal with a Sagami Warrior anyway, and then if you have another 3/3 there, like how do you answer that as well? I believe he did have a Flame Burst in hand, but if that I think Imperial had a Flame Burst in hand, but if he had used that Flame Burst to clear a 3/3 as orb, that Flame Burst wouldn't have had influence on his offensive turn. So it just goes to show, like, one line can really change the direction of the game, which is one of the beautiful things about Faeria. I think we'll go to a break now while we set up the last 2 games. We have our 3rd place match coming up, where players will play for $500, and I believe it's been changed, but I'll get it confirmed from Atmaz, that we have a prize support for 4th place now. So we didn't want our 4th place players feeling really sad when they lose, which is fair. So I'll just confirm that with him, and we'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, in the previous monthly cups, it's been $150 for each of the bounties.
Yes.
And now it's $100 for the bounties and $100 for 4th place.
Yeah, the feels bad 4th place doesn't exist anymore. You do get something at least, and then we have the finals for our last game of the event. So don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be back very soon with the 3rd place match.